what does FNAF Secret of the Mimic hide in the theater, workshop, and backstage areas? In Secret of the Mimic, you'll explore a giant manor for the ultimate deadly fetch quest. You'll explore the halls of this decayed and abandoned workshop, upgrading your security level along the way to access new areas. Of course, the Mimic hunts you in the dark and could spring up anywhere. In this video, we'll be taking a look at the theater area to see how it functions behind the scenes and what secrets we can find. Like, did you know there's a real historical painting in the workshop? Or what happens if we take the Captain Springlock suit to other areas in the game? We'll be breaking tons of stuff too, like accessing the theater while the show is going on down below. So I hope you enjoyed today's alternative look at Secret of the Mimic. As always, I'll hit you with brief recaps for each area we'll be covering. Having just finished our last chase with Big Top, we'll now need to go back to the security office. And then we are told to access the theater. So we head that way and walk past a very talkative mannequin. Ultimately, we need to restore the power. So we have another one of these rotating puzzles to complete. Upon completion, the Mimic breaks into the room, and we'll need to escape to the offices upstairs through the vents. There's some lore stuff we can find up here, but ultimately, this leads us to the workshop area. We'll pause the recap here for now. So when we leave the security office and put our device into this wall-mounted machine here, this acts as a loading hub. In some ways, it's no different than an elevator, and the game purposefully stops us here so it can unload one part of the map and have the new area load in. Now, this is probably a bit obvious, given our data diver has a loading symbol on it, but that's why we get stuck in this pose and can't pull out our device as fast as we usually can with a regular door. Depending on how powerful your PC or console is will determine how long you get stuck. We can also see our data diver is unplugged from the back part during this action too. Now, the next section looks like this from an outside perspective. The actual theater and workshop are still unloaded, but there's something a bit interesting out of bounds here. On this far wall, we'll find a couch with a blanket on it, but behind that wall, we'll find some early developer text. It reads, "Doll Hospital Start." This is interesting because it could mean that the events of this area used to be different. Either the entrance to the hospital section was right here, beyond this wall, or the hospital used to be where the theater was. We can only speculate though. Of course, when passing by a yapping mannequin, I had to mess with it. Because the head of the mannequin is parented to what I believe is a pivot point on the model and not the center, when we mess with it, the head will actually disconnect from the body. There we go, much better. Right after we finish the puzzle in here, the Mimic will spawn in wearing a random costume. Sometimes it's a mushroom bro, sometimes a clown, a bee, etc. Lots of variety. When Senpai notices us, they'll start sprinting to our location. This is what the jump scare looks like for the red mushroom guy in slow motion. The second they touch us, our arms unload, and their jump scare triggers in real time at the location we are standing. They basically just pop up and grab us, and when their animation is done, they unload and our arms reappear. Side note, the faces on these guys just make me think of the Clancers from Mischief makers. Here's another jump scare though. This one is the jester dog thing. Is it a dog? I have no idea. This dirty naked shroom can't get me though because I turned off my hitbox. So he just sort of flails against me. We can also drop the Mimic off the map if we step out of bounds in any capacity, because it will unload the room we were in. Huh, I guess the bee can't fly. If we warp to the starting point of the Mimic, we can also watch them load in like a second later as they eat our face. Glorious! So now we're going to move on to the workshop. In this area, the player essentially needs to rebuild a Springlock suit. We can make our way to the assembly area, where Miss Helpful will push to talk us to death, and we then slam our diver into the computer to get started. In this area, we will need to find 5 different pieces of Captain Springlock, with each piece being hidden throughout the workshop. The arms and legs can be found on the ground levels, and the head can be found dangling from the second floor. After all these pieces are assembled, and the Mimic hasn't ended our existence, we can encourage the suit to cheer up with a controlled shock. We can now climb inside this thing, somehow, and harness its power. So the first thing I noticed about this warehouse while flying around was this. Now, you might be thinking, wait, what is Portrait of a Lady as a Vestal Virgin by Angelica Kauffman, 1781 to 1782, doing in a place like this? Good question. I have no idea. My lady got cropped, thrown in a frame, and then turned around to face a wall. Disrespectful to say the least, but now canon to the world of FNAF. Later on, we can find this same asset used in the theater, so we now know at least this painting isn't an original. As we begin to piece together our Build-A-Bear Gundam, I will say things are certainly a lot easier if we just become a ghost and grab the parts. The Mimic can't run through walls, but I for sure can. What I found interesting is, if you try to grab the head from up above before it gets lowered, dropping said head from up here will just unload the head entirely. The only way to get the head to reappear is to leave this area and force the map to reload so it will respawn. So something else that is neat is that beneath the ground, we can find a fully assembled version of the Captain Springlock suit. My hunch was that after we lowered the suit to the ground, that this model will be swapped out with the one we just built. But that's not the case. They are linked somehow though, which I'll show in just a second. So in case you were curious, this is what it looks like to climb inside the Springlock suit in third person. We can see our character just shoves in one of their arms, and it clips through the outer part of the suit's arms, while the right arm just fits in off camera. I don't know how our player steps into the legs so easily, but they do. You'll notice when the chest cavity opens up, that down below, the chest cavity will open as well. So the actions from above also influence what's below. When we gain back control of our character, we'll see the bottom half of the suit unloads. Our left arm defaults to a T-pose, and the head and right arm also remain. So my big thing with this suit is the fact that we can only use it in such a small area. Sure, its usefulness is limited to spare carnival game targets that just happen to be laying around, but what if we took it to other parts of the game? Well, I tried just that. Some doorways tend to hinder it from moving, but if it's near you, it actually won't unload during loading scenes, which is kinda neat. The arm cannon is not very useful, unfortunately, but it can be used to determine if something has collision or not if you're hacking the game. The player's state of being inside the Springlock suit is also preserved for any game save too. So if we bring our Wrath upon Murray's Costume Manor, we can walk through its burning halls like with a T-800, and then park our giant mech outside as we admire the bright view. Just be mindful that the game may crash, like with whatever happened here. Now that we have our mech though, it's time to use a transportation system to move ourselves to the theater area. This involves stepping into these handle hinge things. We'll need to power up the next set so we can utilize it, and then this puts us into the backstage area. Our goal here is to eventually get our suit across, which involves us having to knock down a giant metal bridge. We'll move some platforms around, ride some elevators, and then eventually make our way to the theater show. During the theater show, we must break the targets in order to stay alive. And eventually, this whole thing just kind of falls apart as we plummet again. Our character really loves falling and blacking out. That's like what, 3 times in 3 areas? What a very odd trope to use. Who would suggest such a thing? So let's mess with this theater area now. So first off, when you grab onto these transportation devices, we can see how this transition happens. We get grabbed and pulled upwards, and then we'll immediately just load in on the other side. When we enter this next room, the Mimic is actually frozen in place until we move to the middle of the room. We can see them frozen right here, and touching them will kill us. But the second we move past this area, they will unfreeze and start hunting us down. Moving on to the next room, it doesn't have too much to show off despite its size, but there are a few things I want to mention. For one, the giant pit in the middle of the room cannot be fallen into through normal means. However, you may find it interesting that there is a death barrier. We can even see it if we shoot our balls down there. See it skipping off? That's death. Falling in like so will actually kill you when you reach that point. I guess that makes sense since that's an off-limits area meant for later in the game, so it'd suck to fall down and trigger an autosave down there. As we come around behind the stage area, we'll also get startled by Tiger Rock, who will appear in a flicker and then vanish. Trying to slow this down really doesn't do a whole lot because they instantly appear in normal gameplay too, but we can at least take a longer look. Now up above, I think I broke something. Can someone call maintenance? Oh wait, that's me. Yeah, so the magnetic platform mover has definitely seen better days. When you pick up a messed up bridge piece and move it, placing it will keep its collider still rotated, so you can't walk on it. Something tells me this isn't going to pass the inspection. But enough messing around here. Let's head over to that theater now. So let's start off by showing you what this theater looks like from different angles. Checking out the show from down below is quite enjoyable, mainly because you're normally so far away from where it's all happening. There's also a lot of charm put into this part too. If we look below the stage area, we will see tons and tons of objects stored down here. From characters to targets, there's a lot. So let's take a second to look around all these objects, all these different characters that are stored underneath this set, because quite frankly, there is a ton to see. So I hope you enjoy these close-ups. The same goes for above the theater too. You'll find lots of parts stored up there that are normally obscured by the darker ceiling. Something funny that can happen in this area is if you have a handheld collectible and you enter the Springlock suit, and then get into the lift. The item you are holding will now float in front of you and obscure your sight when you're looking down at the show. There's no way to drop the item either, because the lift places you into a player state where you can no longer exit your suit. So enjoy the show, I guess. If we take our suit down below into the seating area, we are able to walk around and explore. But we have to be careful not to walk into the mannequins. It will cause us to unload the room and fall right away, which isn't fun. We can also walk around the stage a bit, but we have to stay on the front part. If we try going to the back part, where the performers are, we're going to plummet and the show will unload. This starts everything over from the beginning. Now this part didn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but the puppets on the sticks will kill you if you don't shoot the targets. They pop up to block your shots too, but they're just kind of floating. I don't get how these little plushies kill you just by wiggling in front of you, but this is what that jump scare looks like. They also just retreat down below your platform and unload. In case you're curious, there is a data diver machine across from us, but no matter how hard I tried, it would unload every time I tried to go up to it and use it. This machine gets destroyed during the play, when Foxy eventually drops down from up above in the crow's nest. Foxy will then get shoved up in the ceiling, which looks uncomfortable. Things will progress as we shoot targets, and Foxy takes a tumble down below. A big present will appear on the ship, but if we take a look inside, we'll see it's the gift of oxygen. How thoughtful. Rocktopus then drops down from the ceiling, and we must shoot his tentacles. We can see how they retract under the map as they are defeated. As the theater starts combusting into wooden explosions, we'll see Rocktopus fall down and crash through the stage. Our end is truly drawing near, and we can take a peek down below the stage to see where all the props have once again gathered. As the emergency system yelps at us and chaos ensues, the platform we are on will eventually begin to fall. Our character will raise their arm up during this fall, and this normally happens so fast. But if we slow it down to a crawl, we can see that after the fall, the platform will reset back up above as the next scene loads in. And that's the final curtain call. But with that, that's everything I found in the theater area. Next up, we have the recycling center and a very peculiar nurse to mess with. I hope you enjoyed this video. Subscribe now if you did, and I'll see you in the next part real soon. Cheers!